which she won the La Mamounia Prize. A journalist and frequent commentator on women and human rights, she spearheaded a campaign to help Moroccan women speak out as self-declared outlaws against their country's unfair and obsolete laws. She was in her native Morocco, actually working on her book Adèle, when she began meeting women who confided the dark secrets of their sexual lives. Sex and Lies combines vivid, often harrowing testimonies with the author's passionate and intelligent commentary to make a galvanizing case for sexual revolution in the Arab world. Moderating tonight's conversation is Soraya Shamali, an award-winning writer and activist whose work focuses on the role of gender in culture, politics, religion, and media. She's the director of the Women's Media Center Speech Project and the author of Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Women's Anger. So now please help me welcome Leila and Soraya to PMP Live. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much, Brittany, for that introduction.
You're so welcome. Take it away. And I'm so excited for this.
Oh, thank you. Me too. Thank you. Well, I am just thrilled, Leila, to finally meet you. The Nanny is also one of my favorite books. And when Politics and Prose asked me to do this, I just jumped at the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so we have so much to talk about. I'm going to jump right in and really ask you to talk about how you came to write the book, because you were actually writing another book, and you sort of talk about it in this, but can you describe it for us?
Actually, when I had the idea of Sex and Lies, I was writing The Nanny. But I just published my first novel, Adèle, dans le Jardin de l'Ogre in French, and I went to Morocco for a promotion tour. And one day I was in Rabat and I did like a big presentation in a theater. And at the end, I went to have a coffee, in a little coffee, and a girl sat next to me and she said, "Do you mind if I stay with you? I have something to tell you." And I said, "No, of course, stay with me." And she began to tell me a lot of things, and actually a lot of secrets, very intimate things about her life, about her mother, about her divorce, and about the fact that she didn't feel any pleasure having sex with men. And it was very weird. We were in Rabat in a very traditional cafe, and this woman was telling me all that. And what surprised me was the fact that she trusted me. And I didn't understand at the beginning, why does she trust me? And she said to me, because you're a writer, and I read your book, and someone who is capable of writing that, of understanding the soul of a woman like Adèle, a person like that can understand me, and more than that, can understand me and not judge me. And when I came back home, I wrote everything on a notebook, and I felt that I needed to do something with that. And I remembered my own childhood and my own youth in Morocco. And I remember that when I was 13, 15, 16, I was lying all the time about my sexuality, that I would never have confessed the way this woman have confessed, because everything that goes with sexuality was lie, hypocrisy, or just silence. Silence. So I wanted people to hear this woman, because in a certain way, I wanted them also to hear me. And I wanted to tell them, why do you force us to live in lie, in hypocrisy, or in silence? Because when you are a woman, you are condemned to that, as if sex for us was always dirty, always a sin. So yeah, I wanted to yell in a certain way. I wanted to yell at the face of every man in my country.
Yes, it's interesting too, because, well, I also as a writer have been surprised how many people just share these stories, share these secrets. They write, they talk, and it's a huge trust. It I think makes you feel very responsible.
Absolutely.
For telling these stories, if you can tell these stories. And I don't know if you found this. You didn't mention fear, but I talk a lot about sexual violence, and all of these stories seem to come out of a place where everything you described is tied up with the threat of violence. And many of the women you talk to, I think, address that. Were any of the stories that you heard as you collected them particularly arresting to you? Did they alter your thinking or make you pause and step back from what you were doing?
To be really honest, I was not shocked by the facts
Mm-hmm.
because even as a very young girl, I think that the first conversation I had about sexuality with my mother or other person was always about danger,
Right.
violence, and things like that. So I was very young, but I knew about rape and I knew about violence, and I knew that being a woman was being a possible victim of this kind of thing. So for me, sexuality was equal to violence.
Yes.
I was more, it's very sad to say that, but I think that I was more surprised by tenderness and by pleasure than by violence. So concerning the testimonies of the woman, what surprised me was not the facts, but the feelings they expressed, and especially the fact that a lot of women said to me that for them, they decided to be free, they decided to have the life of an independent woman, and many of them said to me, I'm not sure it's worth it. I'm
Right.
not sure I made the good choice. I should have married and do what my parents and what the society was expecting for me, because the cost of freedom is too high.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in a certain way telling me also, you live in France, you are very lucky, you don't have to face every day what we
Yes.
are facing and all the obstacles. So when I was telling them, no, it's a good thing to be free, they were saying, it's just theory. For you, it's easy to say.
Yes.
And so, yeah, at the end of the book, I got conscious of the fact that it's very easy to tell people, yeah, stand up and be free. But sometimes being free, it's too hard to be free. Sometimes you lose too much.
You lose too much, and I think it ties back to um, how punishing the culture is.
Exactly.
It's a punishment, and there's nothing unique to Morocco about that, right? I mean, we were talking briefly earlier about the bridges between those experiences and attitudes and those women and girls, and their experiences are so much like girls who grow up in very traditional, conservative, highly religious, patriarchal cultures, no matter where they are in the world. They have the same secrets and the same experience, where pleasure is elusive. The idea that they would have pleasure and have it be sexual and their choice is not part of the culture, I think.
Absolutely. And there is also this idea that people give you, even when you are a little girl, that if you do something wrong, if you make a mistake when it comes to sexuality, you're going to be punished. But not
Mm-hmm.
only you, your whole family is going to be punished
Yes.
because of you. You're going to bring, the something dirty, something bad onto the family. So you have a burden on your shoulder. You have to assume this idea of the honor of the whole family, the whole clan, and even the whole country. People are telling
Yes.
you, as a Moroccan, as a Muslim, you can't act like this.
Yes.
So you're not only responsible for yourself. It's not just a bad sexual experience that you had. It's something wrong you did for the whole family and
Right.
your whole culture. So it's very difficult because you always feel that you are going to be punished. And one of the girls said to me, it's the first one, and she said that when she had sex for the first time, she could hear the voice of her mother telling her, be a virgin, be a virgin. So of course she couldn't have an orgasm because she was punishing herself.
Right. Right. She'd internalized it.
Yeah, of course.
It's interesting. Can we talk a little bit about the effect of colonialism on that sense of honor and identity? Because both you and I have grown up in post-colonial, post-independence environments, and um, so much of the honor becomes, as you say, embedded in girls as sort of objectified representatives of the purity and virtues of their culture. And boys and men have other issues, but that question of being honorable as a national symbol to overcome oppression, to make it clear that colonial rulers understand that there is honor and that there is purity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that's a very, very interesting topic, and I'm exploring right now, especially because I'm writing a novel about colonialism right now. And the colonial conquest was also a sexual conquest.
That's
when
right.
The men, especially in France, decided to go to Africa or to Asia, there was this idea that you're not only going to conquest a land, but also to conquest a woman and a man. So that was this idea and this terrible myth about Black men or Arab men who were like savage and having sex like animals, and the Black woman or the Arab woman, she was very lascive and very sensual, and she loves, of course, to have sex with the white man who is coming from abroad. So there was this mythology. And for instance, in my family, it's very interesting because my grandmother, she was a white woman, and she came from France, and she met my grandfather, who was an Arab, during the World War II. They fell in love, and she came to Morocco and she lived with him. And she was hated by the French people because she was a white woman having
Yes.
sex with an Arab. So everyone was like disgusted by her. She was white, and she was supposed to she was supposed to defend the honor of the white people
And stay pure.
And the purity of them. So my point of view is very mixed and very ambiguous, because in my family I have both sides.
Yes.
But I'm very aware of how much sexuality was important in colonialism. And my grandfather, for instance, I remember that he was always angry because his wife was humiliated because of colonialism, but his sister too, who was an Arab and who wore a little veil in the 60s, she was humiliated too by white men who were making fun of her. Oh, take out your veil, you're so beautiful, and touching her. So after that, my grandfather, he became even more patriarchal because he felt he had to defend something. He had to defend his family and the women of his family against deprivation of the West. So I think that there is this conflict of civilization that is very difficult for people like us, for intellectuals from the Arab world who are trying to defend freedom, equality, etc. Because when we do that, or feminism, when we do that, people in our country said, "Oh, you are from the West, and you want to sell us that it's just colonialism. We don't believe in this shit." And you say it's universalism, but they said that before, and then they came in our country and they conquested everything. So it's very difficult trying to deconstruct that and explain that you can believe in universalism and at the same time be very lucid and very conscious of the consequences of colonialism. But it's very, for me, it's two different things.
And I think that it's hard sometimes to realize how material it becomes in people's bodies and in their sense of self and in their sexual expression or sexual repression. It's hard to, I think there was colonialism and it still lives on in these expectations and morality and restrictions.
And in France, sometimes I just published 3 months ago a novel that takes place in the 50s in Morocco. It's the story of my grandparents, my mother. And people in France was telling me, "Oh, but colonialism, it's a long time ago. Why do you speak of that again?"
Yes.
And I'm like, it's not a long time ago. It's the childhood of my mother. So it's something very fresh. When I was a child, my mother used to tell me, when I was telling her, "How was it when you were a child?" And she was saying, I had frizzy hair and people were making fun of me because I was the girl of a white woman and an Arab. So no, it's not a long time ago. It's still us. It's still in us.
Yes. And you can see it still in society all the time. You can see it walking down streets. So yes, it's eternally complicated to make statements like the ones that you're making. So I think that one of the issues that you talk about, that you touch on in terms of sexual revolution, in terms of understanding the problem at hand and why a sexual revolution is so important, is that it challenges the idea that women are supposed to be private, that their sexuality is a personal matter. because these are very public, very political issues. Can you talk about dismantling that binary, taking apart the dichotomy between these two opposing ideas?
Yeah, the problem is in Morocco, we have to go back to the law. The problem in Morocco is that for a woman, you only have two options: being a virgin or being a wife, being married to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And your only existence as a citizen is an existence as a virgin. So you're the daughter of your father and you're a virgin, or as a wife and you're the wife of someone. So you're never just a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Defined just by yourself, by your job, by your values, or just by who you are always defined by someone and always dependent on another man. And you can always be humiliated in the streets because the streets don't belong to you. People make you feel that, okay, we accept you, but it's not really your space. You can be
Mm-hmm.
here, but we are watching you, and you have to control yourself. You have to wear the good clothes and you have to control your behavior, or we will attack you, and then it's your fault because it's not really your place. You shouldn't be here.
Yes.
So as a citizen, it is very difficult when you are, especially when you are a teenager, you're just in the street with someone, a man or just a friend, and a policeman arrests you. Who is this man for you? Just a friend. No, but you don't have the right to be here taking the hand of a friend. So is he your cousin, your husband? No, he's just a friend. And the policeman say to you, so you're a whore. And he can take you to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, of course, you can't really be, or you can't really feel you're a real citizen and that you count and that your voice count and that you have a political and a public existence if you are always humiliated in your own body.
Mm-hmm.
If people make you feel that you don't, your vagina don't belong to you because it belongs to the state, it belongs to your father, it belongs to your husband. When you get married, your husband has the right to ask you to go to the hospital the next day to verify or to check
Right.
that you were a virgin before. So if you don't own your own body, of course, you're not a citizen, you're nothing.
Yes. And there's no, you have to, as you say, access all of your rights vicariously.
Exactly.
Yes, you have no fundamental human right that is your
And
own.
the only right or the only way you have to access your right is money. And that's what's sad also, is that you have a big gap, of course, between a woman who belongs to the bourgeoisie in Casablanca and a poor woman from a little town in the south of Morocco. Because when you have a car, you have money, you
Yes.
have the possibility to travel, to go to Europe, to have an abortion or to have sex or to have your life.
Yes.
Of course, life is very, very different from a girl for who it's so difficult just to go to school, who is going to be raped at 15 but will never dare to tell her parents, who maybe will get pregnant but will never tell her parents and will have to. So there is also a social gap that is getting more and more deep and important in Morocco. And I think that this injustice also are very, very dangerous for our society.
So you just described a sort of fully intersectional issue, which is class and gender and ethnicity. So how are you finding in these stories, all of these women you spoke to are navigating all of these cross currents all the time, some with regret, some find pleasure, but the overall feeling in the mood that you just described is oppressive, right? You said that it's very difficult. You do not have freedom. You do not have citizenship. How do you find that these women come to terms with leading their own lives through this storytelling? I mean, I imagine some of them were anonymous when you spoke with them. And I think that's also important to talk about, but some were not. Some were using their own names and telling you these stories. So they are doing this, even though it's so difficult.
Yeah, because I may sound very pessimistic and very dark, but the truth is I have a lot of hope for my country because of those women. First thing, education. compared to my grandmother, for instance. So for the generation of my mother and my grandmother, 70% of women in Morocco were illiterate and couldn't read or write. And now almost 100% of women in Morocco can read or write. And that's a big, big difference, of course. And in this book, you have doctors, you have lawyers, you have writers, you have women working in a radio, in the media. And I think that in the, financial independence and education will make the whole difference, because those women, they feel that a lot of them told me, I'm paying a lot of taxes, I'm earning more money than my father, so you know what, I don't want people to tell me what to do, I know exactly what I have to do. And they assume a lot of things, they have a lot of responsibilities. Very often the girl take care of their brothers, of their fathers, of a lot of men in their own family. So I think that that is going to change a lot of things in our societies. And also, our Morocco is a society in transition. We are not as traditional as we used to be. We are very open to the rest of the world. Everyone is watching, I don't know, Netflix, going on the internet, reading newspaper. We know what's happening in the rest of the world. So now the new generation, they want more freedom, they want another life, and they don't want their parents to tell them all the time about tradition and patriarchy and all that. So I think that's also a matter of generation and a matter of time. We were talking just before about colonialism. Things are moving very, very fast. So I'm pretty sure that my daughter and my granddaughter will have a very, very different life than I had. And I have a very different life from my grandmother. I publish book, and my grandmother can't read the book because she doesn't know how to read, and she doesn't know how to write her own name. And today I'm speaking to you in English about a book translated. So I have hope because things are moving.
Yes. So, 8, 9, 10 years ago when the Arab Spring happened and everyone said technology made this happen, and there was a lot of chatter about that, it seems to me that at that time, even though people were talking about this, the revolution stopped at the door of households for women. Women who were involved in protesting were often censored online, punished for their speech, attacked if they went out into the streets. But at the same time, I think that technology has enabled women not to be isolated even when they're physically locked in their homes. And that's true all over the world. Can you talk a little bit about how you think technology may be contributing to the changes you're talking about? I know you're part of social movements. They're transnational. We both work with people who do that kind of work. And without the technology, it wouldn't be possible.
Of course, technology is helping us a lot as fighter for the human rights. I created with a friend of mine a movement in Morocco called The Outlaws, where we publicly declared that we have sexual relationship without being married, and I publicly declared that I had an abortion, which is of course illegal. And so we published that, and we asked people to sign and to come with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And it was big. It was really, really big. A lot of people from Morocco, like 25,000 people who signed in 1 week. But not only Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, women from all over the world telling us their story, and the same stories all over the world: abortion, rape, forced marriage, and things like that. And a lot of women told us, I feel less alone because I can share this with you. And I'm with my husband in my house, and I feel that I'm so lonely, and I will never get out of this terrible destiny. But now I hear you, and I hear that you're fighting for me. So there is this sense of what we call sorority, And I remember when I was a child, boys were always making fun of girls, saying, oh, girl, they can never get along. They are always jealous of one another. There is no real friendship between girls. And I was always like, that's bullshit. That's not true. But it's a very powerful tool of patriarchy to make us believe that there is no sorority. But the day we discover this real sorority, the day we discover that we are plenty and that we have power, but we
Yes.
just have to raise our voice and to have our back. If I fall, I need you, help me. So
Yes.
yeah, I feel that in Morocco, that we don't feel as alone as before, and you can feel it even in the street. Now you're walking in the street and a man is telling you something or insulting you, and very quickly you will have 2 or 3 women around you and just
Yes.
defending
That's
you.
a change, don't you
Yeah,
think?
and it
That's
changes.
a change.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
a lot. You don't feel alone in the street as before.
Yes, that's very important because claiming those public spaces is really central
Absolutely.
to the rights you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch to some questions now so that we have time to answer them. This question is related to what we were just talking about. Sarah asks if you could say more about the difficulties of freedom for the women that you spoke of in the book, because I think there is this tension, as you say, between saying, take your freedom, be more free, join this movement, and actually having to do it, which, depending on where you are in the world, comes with varying obstacles and real penalties for doing this. So I think she's asking, can you talk more specifically about some of the issues that women raised?
There is, for instance, this woman who was homosexual. She was a lesbian, and she was in love with another woman. And her parents were quite open-minded and tolerant. That's what she thought. And so one day she decided to tell them that she was in love and that she was a lesbian. And her parents reacted in a very, very violent way. And they said, you have to go out. If you want to live like this, you have to go out of the country. We will never accept that. And she said to me, I don't know what happened to me. Why? I even thought for a minute that they could understand, knowing this country and knowing them. Another woman who decided to have a free sexual life and to have different experiences without being married. And no man wanted to marry her after she had sexual experience with them. And at the end, every man say, you know, I love you or I like you very much, but when it comes to marriage, I will better marry a virgin. And I could never marry a woman who is like you know, having sex with people. And the big, big problem in Morocco and in many patriarchal countries is the judgment of the neighborhood, of the family.
Yes.
You're a woman who is having sex, you're a whore. There is no gray zone between a free woman and a whore.
Yes.
If you're having sex, you're immediately a whore. And so those women, they are harassed in their neighborhood. People are making fun of them at school and then in the street. And people are telling other people who are going to tell the parents. And the parents are coming home telling you, you're ashamed and you ashamed us. So the big problem is that just having sex gives you a big, big responsibility. You're not just having sex, you're making a big decision that have very dangerous and bad consequences on a lot of people, not only on you. You can lose your job, your parents can lose their job because of that, because people are going to talk and to say, do you see how she lives? Do you see what she does? And we saw her with a man, etc., etc.
Yes. And I know too, as you said, because of the law, a woman who's sexually assaulted, a woman who's found in public without someone she's related to, can be imprisoned, can be held with no recourse at all. You know, it's not just the public shaming, it's actual incarceration.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't have the right to have sexual intercourse when you're not married, so you have to hide. So you have also to organize yourself, because you don't have a space where you can go to, so you have to find an apartment or a car or a place in a forest or something. So very often a woman goes with a man, and the man is expecting to have sex because everything has been organized for that. But if you change your mind and you're like, okay, no, now I don't feel it, the man is probably not going to change his mind, and is going to say, you know, it's not like we have the choice and we can do it anywhere or any, so we are doing it now. He's raping you. Of course you're not going to the cop. What are you going to tell them? But what were you doing in the car or in the forest with this man? So a lot of women are trapped also in very, very dangerous and very bad situation. So, you know, the definition we have as women living in Western countries of being free is very different of the definition people have over there, because for them being free is something very ambiguous. Being free is maybe being a whore or being a very light woman, a woman without morality. When I say I'm free, I say it with pride. But a lot of women there, when they say I'm free, they can't say it with that pride, because it's very difficult.
Yes. So one of the follow-up questions is, how would you compare what's happening in Morocco to other Arab countries?
You can compare it to Algeria a little bit, not so much Tunisia, because Tunisia is very advanced when it comes to the rights of women, even for homosexual. They have abortion.
Yes.
The only Arab country that has abortion since like in the 70s, I think. So it's very, very advanced, and it's a country I love very much, and I go very often there to have meetings with feminists from Tunisia, because they fought a lot, and I have a lot to learn from them. I'm not sure I can compare it to a lot of countries, but for instance, I would rather live in Morocco than in Egypt, but I don't know if it says really something. But in terms of laws, it's very comparable to Algeria. And also, you have different Moroccos in Morocco. If you live in Casablanca, you will never get arrested in the street because you're with a man, because it's a big city, 5 million people living in Casablanca. It's a big, it's very different than in a little town where everyone knows everyone. So you have also different situation in the same country.
Yes. So this is a third question from Hugo. Do you think that the MeToo movement will make a difference in Morocco? Has it already made any kind of difference to protect women in any way against sexual harassment in the workplace?
Yes, I think it did, because
I think you may have lost Leila. Let's see.
wondering also not only about them, but about their daughters. A lot of men, I spoke with a lot of fathers who said to me, oh, I was not aware that it was so difficult to be a woman.
Yes.
And the other thing also that was interesting is that I think that a lot of Muslim men or Arab men were very frustrated by the fact that they had the feeling that people from the West were looking at them. That's what we were saying about colonialism.
Yes.
As savage, they are in a sexual misery, and those people, they can't control themselves, etc.
Yes.
And when they discovered the MeToo movement, they were like, so you see that patriarchy is not only an Arab or a Muslim problem, it's a universal problem.
Yes.
So in a certain way, for them, it was a relief to discover that you can be someone like Harvey Weinstein, who is an American and who is white and who is not a Muslim, and he's a rapist, etc. So it was very interesting, because I think that was also a relief for them to show that it's not a cultural problem, it's a patriarchal problem and a very universal problem, and that you can't put all the blame on religion or culture. So there was a little MeToo movement, and there was one or two little scandals also in Morocco.
Yes. I think it's interesting too, because, and again, I think this is universal. There's a very big gap between women's experiences and men's understanding of those experiences, between women's experiences and men's ability or willingness to believe what they're saying. And I just really have found over time that when women come forward and they tell these stories, the men in their lives react in a way that protects their masculinity, instead of reacting in a way that acknowledges what the woman is saying, because to admit what she's saying means that they're not protecting properly. And so much of their power comes from the trade between protecting and providing. And if they get the information that that's not happening, what does it say about this power that they have in the culture. And I agree with you. I think that really offsets some of the colonial imagination that can be so frustrating for people.
You know, that's why I always try to force men to show also things in another point of view. For instance, when I have all the debate about the veil for women,
Yes.
and I will never fight against a woman who wants to wear a veil. Every woman is free to wear whatever she wants, but I don't like the symbol of the veil. I have to him only about women. It's not only that alienation for women, but it also is a very bad vision of men. It's the idea that we have to wear a veil because you are pigs, because you can't control yourself. And this is a big problem for me. It's not only that it's an alienation for women, it's an alienation for men. I don't want to believe that my son or my best friend is a pig and can't control himself if a woman is not wearing a veil to hide herself from him. So I think that it's very important for men also to look at this in a very objective and lucid way.
Yes, I think that the underlying premise, as you say, is that all men are incipient rapists, that they can't help themselves. Yes. So we have a couple of questions about the impact of the pandemic, particularly on women who may be in dangerous situations. We've seen all over the world that having to self-isolate has meant that so many women already in situations of intimate partner violence and abuse are now trapped in houses. Is safety or help? Are there resources? Are there movements to support them?
To support them, a lot of association to very poor, so people live in very small houses and with big families. So as you can imagine, when it comes to 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and in Morocco it was very long. The it was 3 months. So of course, as you can imagine, it was very violent and very stressful. But what was interesting at the beginning is that, as I was telling you before, when you go in the poor neighborhoods in Morocco, very popular neighborhoods, you only see men in the streets. A lot of men everywhere, young men especially. In the cafe, in the terrace, you will only see men. Women, they are at home. So in a certain way, women are used to confinements. They know that. That's not a surprise for them. They know how to stay home all day and to study, because women, they study a lot, especially young women, take care of the little children, of the old people, make food or cook, etc. So at the beginning of the confinement, I was asking myself, wow, it's going to be very weird, because a lot of young boys are going to discover what it is to be a girl. They are going to be forced to explore this destiny, the destiny of a girl, and they are going to understand, maybe, I hope, maybe just one man is going to understand what it is not to be able to go out and just to wander in the street or to sit in a cafe and just have a drink or a cigarette. So for me it was also a very interesting moment where I was wondering how maybe there was going to be a sharing experience between men and women about this idea of confinement. But
do you think that's happened?
I hope so. And maybe I will. No, I think that I'm maybe going to write a novel or a short fiction about that, because I'm sure that a brother one day late at night, he talked to his sister and he said, so that's your life? You're always like that, always home, always watching TV, always waiting that something is going to happen to give you the opportunity to get out. So it's like Sleeping Beauty, women in Morocco, they are sleeping beauties waiting for their prince to give them the opportunity to get out of the house. So, and the other thing is that in my movement, the Outlaws, we received a lot of testimonies of of children, of women, conjugal rape, and of course a lot of domestic violence,
Yes.
and also a lot of homosexuals who were very, very stressed because they were forced to stay with their family, and they were
Mm-hmm.
afraid that someone was going to discover something about their orientation. So it was a period of terrible stress for all those people. Yeah.
Yes. You know, to add to what you said too about men and boys maybe understanding a little more about the lives of the women that they know, I find that um, masking, having to wear a mask, which, as we were discussing earlier, there are many people in the United States who don't want to wear masks and refuse to wear masks. They tend mainly to be men, and studies have found they tend mainly to be more likely to be white men, right? And what I find interesting about that is I think that they are so unaccustomed to having the way they look and the clothes that they wear associated with morality, associated with other people's judgment of them, you know. And whereas women are used to constantly having their appearance judged, constantly having to confine themselves and their choices.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yes.
And you know, when you are a woman, and I was saying that to my husband the other day, even in the morning you get dressed, you ask yourself, okay, can I dress like that? Because
Yes.
I'm going to take the subway and it's
Yes.
early, I'm going in this neighborhood, so maybe someone is going to tell me this and that. A
Mm-hmm.
man will never have this
Yeah, they
kind of
just put on their clothes and go.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think we have a very different vision of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier, I think. We're like, just put on the mask. Go.
Yeah, and also I read the book you wrote, and when you say that we are raised as women also always to understand the others and to
Yes.
sacrifice for others and to adapt to the situation of others. So we have this idea that it's not me first. I have first to adapt to the society and to accept that society
Yes.
is going to give me some limits and that I
Yes.
have to control myself. And a man is, and there is also this idea that a little boy, oh no, he doesn't want people to control him, but that's normal. He's a boy, he doesn't like
Yes.
authority. But we will never say that for a woman. But a
No.
boy who doesn't like authority is something like it's good, he's free, and he's a good boy. So
Yes,
yeah,
that's
I
right.
think for us it's very different. And I think that's why in the pandemics and in time like that, we see that maybe women are more disciplined and they accept differently to do what we have to do.
Yes, and actually, I think that, you know, so many more men are disproportionately dying from this illness. And some of it has to do with physiology, but some of it also has to do with the sort of stubborn objections to just
Yeah.
doing these things that will put them at less risk, you know. And so I want to keep going with questions for a minute. Let me see. So this is a big pivot in our questions.
Okay.
But there are a couple of questions about what advice or resources or guidance you would offer women, particularly women of color who are starting to write, who are starting these careers.
I would say, I think that the most important thing, and it has also to do with the work, your work, Soraya, but it's a text of Virginia Woolf called The Angel of the House. And it's a very important text for me. And if I have to give an advice to any woman, I would say that for me, the most important thing is to accept the idea of disappointing people and to
Yes,
accept the idea of not being liked. If
yes,
you want to
it's very
please
important.
people, if you want to please people all the time, you're going to be, I think that it's going to be very hard, and you will not give yourself the time to achieve what you want to achieve. Because if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a writer, you have to be selfish. And it's very difficult for a woman to be selfish because no one is giving us the keys for that, to be selfish and
Yes.
to learn just to close a door and to say, no, I don't want to see you. I don't want to take care of you. I don't want to be here for you. I don't want to listen to you. So I think that the first advice I would give a woman is be selfish and don't feel guilty for that. Get
Yes.
rid of the guilt. Get rid of the guilt. You don't have to feel guilty, because spending time in front of your computer for writing is, it has a point. So you don't have to feel guilty for that. And if people are not understanding or make you feel guilty, so what? You don't care. So I think
Yes, I
don't be
agree.
afraid of that.
I think it's so hard to undo all the socialization that tells us to put everyone first. Put everyone first before
And
you.
especially our kids. And
Yes. Yes. All right. Another switch to. We have a couple of questions about translations and whether
Okay.
you found it hard to hand these stories over to be translated. If you had any worries or thoughts about that process.
Not really. Not really. Maybe in Arabic, because when I wrote this text, I tried to be very very careful to keep the exact word the woman used in French or
Yes.
in Arabic. So when we worked in the translation in Arabic, I wanted to use the exact same word. But in the Moroccan Arabic, all the vocabulary of sexuality is very crude, very vulgar. So it was very difficult for me, because I was at the same time I wanted to be very accurate of exactly what they said, but I didn't want the book to be vulgar in Arab and people to tell me, okay, it's just like a vulgar book and something gross. So it was very difficult in Arabic. But in other languages, no, because I only understand English and Spanish. So for the other languages,
Yes.
But,
there's no knowing in the other languages.
When it comes to translation, what was very funny is that when my translator Sam Taylor translated Adèle, one day he sent a text to me and he said, I have to speak with you because in French you can use the word sex to describe the genitals of men or women. So it's a very useful word and you use just sex, but in English you can't. So he said, I don't know you, we never met, and I feel a little bit shy, but we have to speak about vagina, vulva, and dick, etc., and all the vocabulary of sex. My first conversation with my translator was about vagina and all that. And now we're very close because...
That's very funny. Yeah. But when you're writing, you don't think about these things.
No, not at all.
I just didn't, so many changes and so many nuances in different words. So that actually leads me to another question. Why was the title of The Perfect Nanny different in England, different in the US, different in French? All of the different titles that arrive.
Because of the publisher. It's not me, of course, but so in French it's une chanson douce. It's a sweet song. In English, they wanted to be very close to the French title, so it was lullaby. And in the US, my publisher said that he didn't think that it was a good title for the US. And I trust him. He knows his market better than I. I don't know the US readers. So he said to me, The Perfect Nanny is going to be okay. And I was like, okay, for The Perfect Nanny. So that's it.
It makes me think of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo book in English. Yeah. The original name was Men Who Hate Women. And the UK and American publishers wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either. All right, I would like to get one more question in the time that we have, maybe two. This is interesting. What would you say, or how would you engage a person that learns about this or reads your book and believes really that the problems you're describing are caused by Islam versus being a universal patriarchal issue? It's a struggle for me since to engage these people who seem to settle on the male controlling culture being due to the majority religion.
I think I would tell them to go to Orthodox Jewish community, to go to
evangelical Christian
community, to go to any place where you have exactly. First of all, I think that every religion has a problem with my vagina. every
Yeah.
religion wants to control the woman's sexuality. So in that term, I think that they are all equals. So
Yes.
it's not a Muslim problem, it's a religious problem. And I believe in that. Of course, there is
Yes.
a religious problem. But I would tell them also that in the 50s in Egypt or in other Muslim countries, women were more free than in the south of Spain, for instance.
Yes.
So you have also to look at the history. Morocco was not always like that, and
Yes.
the Arab culture was also a culture of erotism and a culture of the body and a culture of pleasure. So we are in a historical movement, and now the movement is quite bad for women, but it has not always been like this, and it will not always be like this, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, it's funny. There is one more question here, which is related to that. It's an interesting. I think the way it's written is interesting. How were things better or worse pre-colonialism? But it's not just pre-colonialism. It is really through the 20th century, the entire period. And I think you just described it, which is that change seems to be cyclical. And I think that most people don't think about how much more free women were, or how much more open to sexual variation pre-colonial, pre-imperial cultures were.
Yeah, of course. And in the 18th century in Morocco, you had women who were warriors and who were even queens with a lot of power, and they used to fight, and they had a lot of political power, spiritual power. So yes, of course it existed, but I'm always very careful with nostalgia.
Yes.
Because I think that you can also use nostalgia in a very bad way, saying, it was better before, but better for who? Better for usually it's better for the rich people and for a minority. And I always thought that nostalgia is only white men can afford nostalgia. I'm pretty sure that as an Arab woman, my destiny now is better than the destiny of my mother, my grandmother, and my ancestors. I think that future has a lot to give us, much more than the past. So yeah, I'm always very careful with nostalgia, especially because now in Europe, and I suppose in the US also, we have the extreme rights telling us all the time, oh, it was better before. France was so powerful and so beautiful and so wide before. So yeah, that's a feeling I try not to mix with politics. That's a feeling that I like to use in novels or for something very poetic. But nostalgia and politics don't go along very well, I think.
No, I think you're right. Any nostalgia in politics is a big red flag for bad things.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're going to wrap up. I know that in the conclusion of your book, you start off talking about the 2015-2016 New Year's Eve sex attacks in Cologne, which bring all of these ideas together, because it's this racialized fear, this racialized sexual violence that is often highlighted in media, which was, I think, the case certainly for the coverage of those assaults. And it masks the more likely violence that women encounter in their own homes among people who are more like them than different. Can you talk about why you chose to finish with that?
Yeah, I wanted to conclude with that because of my friend Kamel Daoud, who is an Algerian writer who wrote a tribune just after the attacks of Cologne, saying there is a problem with sexuality in our countries, in Morocco, Algeria, etc. And we have to face it, and we have to deal with it, and we have to stop hiding it. And I think it was very brave for him as a Muslim Arab man to say there is this problem. And of course, in a certain way, he was giving a big gift to the right wing, because everyone was like, oh, even the Arab says that there is a problem. But yeah, I wanted really to support him, because for us, it's very difficult sometimes also to put a light on the problems of our societies, because we know how our enemies are going to use that and to turn that in their own way. So people from the extreme rights in the West and Islamists in the other hand in our countries. So yeah, we have to say it very quietly and with calm that there is a problem with sex in our countries, and that men who comes here, sometimes people who immigrants, for them it's a big shock, the shock of seeing free women, the
Yes.
shock of women who are in the public spaces and they don't even mind about men, they don't mind about how they dress, and they feel, and they feel normal in the street. And yeah, people should, maybe people don't understand the shock it can represent for a young man arriving here. And of course, I'm
Mhm.
not saying that all men are rapists, of course not, but I'm just saying that, yeah, it can be a big shock for them. And I think that's what Kamel was trying to say. So I wanted to support him because I know that, of course, he's not he's an Islamophobic or a racist or whatever.
Mhm.
But I was I was sad for him because he was attacked in such a violent way that I wanted to support him.
Yes. Well, there's one more question related to that. I see we have 3 minutes, so I'm going to take them. And it has to do with how France is managing the mandate to wear masks with the laws against Muslim women covering their faces. You know, where everyone outside of France is looking at this and wondering how.
To be honest, I'm very surprised because I thought that everyone was going to speak about that and that it was
Yes,
going to be. No one is speaking about that. That's
it's
the
so
first time.
funny.
Yeah, I'm living in France since for 17 years. They are speaking of Islam all the
All
time.
the time.
3 months they are not speaking about Islam. No, I think that they are so shocked. And so, you know, the way of life in France, that people love to be outside, to be free, to drink, to smoke, to
Mhm.
do whatever they want. So this idea of restraining themselves is very difficult
Yes.
for French people because they love life and they love food, etc. So I think that now, they don't really think about Islam, all those things, because people are so shocked. And so yes, people are sad. Yeah, I can feel a
Yes, they're
real
mourning.
yeah, a real sadness, and people are very worried also about the consequences of all that, because now it's just the beginning, but in 3 months, 4 months, what is going to happen in all our countries, and people losing their jobs, and
Yes.
you know, France is a very big touristic destination. No tourists this year for France.
Yes.
Terrible. I'm in Paris right now. Paris is empty. You can go to
Yes.
Eiffel Tower or the Louvre. It was just impossible to imagine to go to the Louvre in July. It's empty. So
Yes.
yeah, it's very weird atmosphere.
Yes, I think that's true everywhere. I think it's starting to really occur to people
Yeah,
how long this is going to go on for. There's really there are no easy solutions.
that's
But
sure.
I want to end on a good note, which
Yeah,
is
please.
thank you so much for writing this book
Thank you.
and for sharing these stories and for being here with us today. I'm going to hand this back to Brittany to close. For anybody who's here, please buy the book, read the book. Brittany will give you details. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, I've dropped the link to purchase the book in the chat. I'm also going to follow up with all of you with an email to purchase Leila's book and also to purchase Soraya's book, Rage Becomes Her. I think these two books are such perfect companions with each other to read back to back. So I'll send everyone that. Leila and Soraya, thank you so much for being here. I
Thank you
learned
very
so
much.
much from this conversation, and I hope everyone else did too. I'm sure they did.
Bye
Thank you for
bye. Thank
having
you.
us. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Goodbye, everybody.
Stay well.